Hey everyone, so in today's video, in honor of the 33rd anniversary of Nirvana's Nevermind, I'm going to be going over some of the studio distortion tones that they achieved on that album. I know this style of video has sort of been done to death by a whole bunch of different people on YouTube, but today I thought I would give you my attempt at some of the distortion tones from that album using the gear that I have. I know I've done videos like this in the past, but today I thought I would try and vindicate myself and get as close as I possibly can with the knowledge and gear that I've built up over the years. So I'm going to spare everyone most of the details here because everyone's covered this and all the information is freely available online. But Nevermind was recorded in Sound City Studios in LA during May of 1991 over a period of a few weeks. The gear that was used at the studio session is fairly well documented, although a lot of the finer details are kind of unknown. So in terms of amplification Kurt was using during the Nevermind sessions, the two main amps for the distortion tones were his Mesa Boogie Studio preamp, which was his live amp at the time, and also the Fender Bassman, which was a 1963 blackface model. Supposedly this Fender Bassman was rented for the sessions, although there is a sort of speculation or theory that the amp was actually borrowed from Mike Ness of Social Distortion. He is known for using a modified Fender Bassman along with Celestion Greenback Pulsonic speakers. So following Aaron Rash's video on the Pulsonic Greenback speakers, a lot of people seem to take that as fact as being the definite speakers that were used for the distortion tones of Nevermind. Obviously it does sound very close, but it's still never been definitively proven as to what speakers were actually used on the album. So I decided to do a bit of my own research on this. And what I did was basically look through a lot of the images from shows that were performed just before and just after the Nevermind sessions. So from what I could find, there's kind of 2 or 3 main cabinets that Kurt was using around this time. One of them appears to be a straight PV 412 of some description. It looks like an 80s model. The closest thing I could find resembling this cabinet, just looking online, was the PVM 412. According to what I could find, these seem to come stock with the G12K 85 Celestion speakers. I'm honestly not 100% sure how these sound compared to the likes of Pulsonics or G12 T75s, but it seems that Kurt was using a cabinet of similar description around the early 1991 period. Another well-documented cab that Kurt used around this time was the Hiwatt LA412. Kurt owned at least one of these Hiwatt cabinets, and they came with the Hiwatt Legend speakers. These seem to be quite similar to Celestion G12 T75s. They're both 75 watt and from around the same era. A few people here on YouTube have made videos on the Hiwatt LA412 cabinet specifically. So the Hiwatt LA412 is definitely another contender as of possibly being used on the Nevermind sessions, but unfortunately I don't own one of those cabinets to be able to do tests myself. Around this time, Kurt also seemed to be using another cabinet with a very wide metal grille. There's no branding or logos on it that I can see, but it appears to be a straight 412 cab with a sort of white stripe around the edges. Honestly, no idea what brand or make of cab this is or what speakers it might have had. It's possible again that this was also used on the Nevermind sessions, but it's impossible to know for sure. In terms of effects, it's very well known that Kurt used an 80s era Boss DS1 on most of the Nevermind tracks, as well as 70s or 80s small clone. It's theorized that this was the Redicon SAD version, but I don't think it's ever been definitively proven as to which version Kurt used. In my opinion, it doesn't particularly matter as they both sound very, very similar, almost identical. But yeah, just thought I'd note that there as well. And lastly, in terms of guitars, Kurt was using a Mosrite Gospel, which is a very rare guitar, pretty much the same as a Mosrite Mark V, just says Gospel on the headstock. And also around this time he was using a lot of Strats with humbuckers in the bridge, most likely Seymour Duncan 59s. So in terms of microphones on the cabs, it seems that Butch was using a mix of dynamic and condenser mics. I'm not 100% sure which mics were actually used on the guitar cabs, but it seems that Butch was using a lot of AKG stuff, as well as the Shure SM57 and the Neumann U87. So taking all of this into consideration, I'm going to go over what I use now to try and get as close as possible to the Nevermind distortion tones as I could. So in terms of amplifiers, I just used my Mesa Boogie Studio 22 Plus with the graphic EQ, and I used this plugged into my Marshall JCM 800 412 cabinet, which has some 1988 G12T75 Celestion speakers. This setup is the closest thing I have to what was used in the Nevermind studio, although I believe for most of the distortion tracks, the main amp that was used was the Fender Bassman. The Mesa Boogie Studio 22 does get pretty close to that sound. During the Nevermind tour, Kurt also used a handful of JCM 800 and 900 cabs, which would have came with G12 T75 speakers or Celestion V30s. So it's not out of the question that Kurt could have used these speakers on the Nevermind album, however I think it's quite unlikely. In terms of effects pedals, I'm just using my Boss DS1 for this. There are a few songs where Kurt did some different things with pedals. For example, on Lithium, it's well known that Kurt used an Electro Harmonix Big Muff pedal, and on Territorial Pissings, it's well known that he used the Rat pedal plugged straight into the console. In my opinion, I also believe Breed was probably a Rat pedal plugged into the amp as well. But for this video, I'm going to be mainly focusing on the main distorted tones that you hear on the album from the likes of In Bloom, Smells Like Teen Spirit and Stay Away, all of which were likely the Boss DS1 paired with the Fender Bassman amp. So in terms of guitars, I just stuck with my Squier Affinity Strat. This is the closest thing I have to Kurt's Fender Japan strats that he was using around this time. In terms of pickups here, I've got a Seymour Duncan 59 bridge humbucker in this guitar, so it's pretty much as close as I can get to Kurt's strats. Unfortunately, I don't have a Mossrite Mark V. The closest thing I have to a Mossrite currently is a Unifox Phase 2 High Flyer. But unfortunately, in my opinion, this didn't get quite as close as the Strat to the Nevermind distortion tones, so I've just stuck with that for the majority of this. So with all this out of the way, I'm going to move on to showing you the tones I got for this video, and please do let me know down in the comments how close you think I got. Do please stick around to the end if you're curious about the mic setup and settings, as I'll have those on the screen at the end. Thank you all for watching, and please do let me know what you think.